This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, eCoffee with Experts. This is your host, Ranmay here. And today we have James, who is the director at Black Lab with us. Hey, James, how's it going?
I'm good, Ranmay. Thank you. And thank you very much for having me.
Lovely. James, before we move any forward, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit, how it all started, how you dived into the digital marketing space, and also a bit about Black Lab. What do you guys do? What are your core offerings? And we'll take it off from there.
Yeah, sure thing. So I started my life in digital marketing back in 2010, working for an agency that's, I'm pleased to say, is still going, and we're a great set of people to work for. But they was a kind of a graduate from university. The first job I got there was running their in-house e-commerce site that sold, of all things, TV stands. So we had a partner who would manage the fulfillment and warehousing, and we would manage the website. That was a digital marketing agency, so they had the designers, developers, and everything in house, and this was a bit of a pet project for them. And that's really where I cut my teeth, learning about online and e-commerce. At the time, they had their own platform, I think, for e-com, and probably within a year of being there, we migrated to Shopify, and was one of the sort of early iterations of Shopify. Over time, we kind of really built that store out and started becoming for essentially what was two people, one in an office and one in a warehouse. We were quite a big player in the TV stand landscape for a number of years. Then I moved up within the business, handed over the e-commerce site to another junior colleague who took that on from strength to strength. And then I went into app development and project management and website builds and things like that. So I was there for a number of years, 2 or 3 years further, and then I left and went to what's called a shopper marketing agency in a fairly similar area. And those guys, again, they're still going, which is fantastic. And they deal with anything kind of retail based, predominantly food, but also sportswear. So I was really lucky. I got to work on the likes of Nike, Britvic, so Pepsi in the UK. And also I ended up working on the Lego account the last sort of year or so for my time there, but very much in a digital team. So that was a traditional marketing agency that when I joined, we set up, I was part of the team that built the digital agency and kind of worked my way through that, doing all sorts of projects, from 3D renders of Lego models that you could walk around in VR, because VR at the time was becoming sort of the new thing. It never quite took off, I suppose, as we anticipated, but it was being used quite a lot back then, right through to just helping major UK retail supermarkets with their bringing to life their digital presence for support campaigns. So there's a major one of the top 4 supermarkets in the UK. We helped with their sponsorship for a TV show where people could enter a competition and win. So we did the promotion and actually managed all the infrastructure. So quite a diverse role. Anything essentially digital we got pulled into, and there's a steep learning curve at times, but a fun one nonetheless. And then so I had some great experiences doing really varied things with different clients. And then after probably around 2016, 2017, I made the leap to go by myself. I did a business management degree, so I always wanted to run my own business. And I thought I could put into practice what I'd learned in my degree, but also what I'd learned professionally to build a business. Mm-hmm. I spent the first couple of years just by myself, working with probably a small handful of clients and having quite a bit of fun, essentially being their external but in-house marketing support. So very close to those clients and doing some interesting things, but not on the scale of when you're working with sort of international brands or much more local brands. But over time, we've built up Black Lab to really be a digital marketing specialist. So we don't really tend to stray kind of into, if you like, branding, creative, that sort of thing that much. We tend to refer that on to partners, but we essentially offer performance marketing, SEO, geo services, and we do a little bit of web dev off the back of it. Usually if a client directly approaches us, we'll take on that project. So there was a team of 7 of us as it stands at the moment. As you can imagine, that ebbs and flows, and we do have a network of contractors that we've worked with, some of them for 6, 7, 8 years, even longer, that help us scale and grow. What we do as well at Black Lab we have a real range of clients. One of our biggest clients is a nursery provider in the UK, a national brand, which is quite unusual in that space. Most are kind of hyper-localized, but we have a real focus on automotive. So aside from all of our other kind of broad, varied brands, our kind of real focus as a business is on working and supporting the automotive industry. And that's from retail right through to finance, to insurance, and everything in between. I think when you say automotive, people just think car dealerships, but that's a small part of what we actually do in the space. And the more we get into it, the more we realize how deep a sector it actually is, and there's tons to go at. So that's probably, whilst we've worked in that sector for the last 5 years, it's probably in the last 2 years we've really started to focus on. But because we do have a range of clients, one thing we as a business do in the UK is we have quarterly marketing events. So we noticed that in our city of Leeds, there's not a lot going on in terms of people trying to get brands together just to talk and share ideas. Each quarter, a space will host anywhere sort of upwards of 30 to 50 people that can come and listen to talks that we put on. So it's not the Black Lab show. We only tend to put one speaker forward, and then we recruit speakers from usually brands or people that are located around the area. But hopefully, as we're only a year into doing it, but as they get a little bit bigger, we'll be able to invite people from slightly further afield. But we've had people from Go Ape, the Royal Armouries, and gosh, my mind's gone blank, automotive finance clients. We've had a real range of people in the room to deliver talks, and each quarter we tend to have a different theme, and we try and get people to mold their talks to that, but it's not completely rigid. So we're trying to get ourselves out there and just engaging with the marketing community a little bit more, and trying to build something that's not just about us delivering our services. It's actually more, there's some great stuff going on in our area. It's just really talking about that and getting it out there.
Lovely. Quite a journey, I must say. James, you said you're more client facing. So did that come naturally to you while growing through your professional career?
Yeah, definitely. So apart from when I first started on the e-commerce website when I was a graduate, I've always been sort of client relationship based with my works. I tend to have the bigger picture of what's going on. So I used to do a lot of like planning and thinking about the concept, maybe about how we could deliver something in previous roles. And then I'd bring in the relevant specialist. So whether it was a developer or a performance marketing specialist, to actually put the meat on the bone and say, right, here's the detail of how we're going to deliver, and this is what the results are, or in principle what the results should be. So I think one thing I'm quite good at is identifying who do we need and bringing the relevant parties in. So the bit about my job I really like is going out and speaking to people and spending that time with people. I've got some guys in our business who they just love looking at numbers and can, just now the help of AI, they can be so much more efficient, but their minds work that way. Whereas I think I like going and having the conversation, talk about the bigger picture and what we would hope to achieve, and getting quite excited about that, and then getting to the point where it's more like, right, here's the concept, let's go and deliver that and get in the relevant people in. So I think probably, so when I was doing the e-commerce store back in 2010, I learned how to use AdWords, and ever since then my knowledge has just decreased to the point that it's changed so much even in the last 2 years. So I would be lost if I tried to build up accounts. That's why I've got people within the business now that are, they're super slick. They know exactly what's going on, and I bring them in when we need it. So I talk about the principles, but don't necessarily kind of get involved in the granular details with campaigns.
And then as an agency, you do both PPC and SEO, right? Quite a few agencies do that. What is your general opinion on the SEO versus PPC battle?
I think I don't think it is a battle. I think they have to work in hand in partnership. Yeah. You could look at it one of two ways, that SEO should fill in the gaps that PPC isn't filling, or vice versa. But you should absolutely have a strategy that combines both product or both services in there. Obviously, SEO is getting all the kind of the headlines at the moment with AI mode and AI overviews, and how ChatGPT is surfacing brands on there. But obviously, PPC still has a huge part to play in that. I think, and we might get onto it later on, but I think the importance of brand is becoming increasingly
Yeah.
relevant now. I think anybody that just continues to focus on that bottom of the funnel, high intent stuff, over time is going to lose out. I think those brands at the moment that are pivoting to leverage bigger brand piece, that top of funnel, middle of funnel piece, they're the ones that in the long term are going to be more successful. But obviously that takes a lot of time and effort, whether you're doing it internally or whether you're using an agency partner. There's obviously cost associated with it. But I think now is certainly the time to not be ignoring either of them and making sure you've got a strategy for both, but a strategy that works in harmony.
Yeah, yeah. And then, from an operational standpoint, James, you have always spoken about, sustainable growth rather than fast scale, right? Which actually makes more sense, from the way we have also grown our agency and our business. So, what does that look like for you? What practices have you set internally at Black Lab, which kind of helps you, kind of prove that statement from an operational efficiency standpoint?
Yeah, I think we've always tried to be very steady in our growth, and probably we have a non-exec director, probably to his frustration that maybe we could be more aggressive. I think a big thing from an operational standpoint is we've always kept lots of money in the business, which is that liquidity has always given us the flexibility to do anything we essentially want to do. As basic as it sounds, go out and buy a new laptop if we needed to tomorrow. It's not an issue to do that. So we've always tried to do things sort of step by step and probably overthought some things. But by doing that, I think it's set us up for security in the future. And just to kind of build on your question a little bit, we tend to apply the same principle to our clients. We've seen some clients and had some in the past have wanted to go in all guns blazing. And absolutely, if you've got the budget that you need to spend, let's utilize it, but let's just take a step back and actually plan that out properly. We have observed cases in the past where people have just jumped in with 2 feet and either wasted budget, not had tracking properly set up, all these things. And great, you've probably made some sales, but what's the bigger value on that? And I think anything with marketing, whether it is this top of funnel, bottom funnel, has to be viewed as investment, but that investment you've got to be able to track and follow through. So I think making sure you have that piece of thought process to properly ensure that you've got everything in place before you start is a critical, and that's the same whether it's delivering stuff for our clients or internally with our approach to our processes.
And talk about client retention, James. I mean, a lot of agencies, that we spoke with business owners, this is like one of the problem areas, right? Having a leaking bucket. So how do you ensure that, because you are in a client facing role more so now, how do you ensure that the clients, I mean, while the ticket size and everything is fine, but the overall, retention or the tenure with you is kind of longer than the general, let's say,
Yeah.
retention rate there?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because we've experienced in the last year or so, we've had some clients that have left us for no other reason than, they're happy with the work and they just want to go to somebody else because they offer a different type of, or an additional service, so some branding or something like that. And we're never going to be able to compete in that because it's not in our wheelhouse. But for those clients that retain, I think the big thing is delivering what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. And if you're not going to do it on time, making sure you flag that. Don't just disappear off into ether and not resurface. But also FaceTime with clients. As I've grown my career, I've realized how important just spending time with people, whether that's just a quick check-in on a phone call or popping around for a coffee or going for lunch, something like that. It's tricky because it doesn't really feel like you're doing work when you're seeing those people, but actually you're giving them the opportunity to either raise any concerns or queries, but also from your perspective, it's an opportunity to understand if there's anything else you could be doing for them. You could be increasing.
You, quite literally, right? I'm thinking vented at you, quite literally, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's that FaceTime. And don't get me wrong, we get it wrong sometimes. Like we don't quite get it right. But I think definitely in the last year, I've really seen the importance of spending time with people. On the flip side of it as well is, running our events and our wider marketing, making sure we're visible so that leaking bucket, every business is always going to lose clients, that you're not going to have 100% client retention your entire time. So make sure you are topping up that leaking bucket. And last year or so, we've really put an emphasis on that. And it's taken a long time, but it's just beginning to feel like it's paying dividends now. And once you convert some of those, making sure that you've got more coming down the line to ensure that you're not just resting on your laurels. We really built the business on referrals, and we went through a really good period of people just coming to us. But we are now at a stage of the business, we need the type of clients that we're actively going out and getting, larger retainers, bigger budgets, marketing teams in-house, stuff like that we can work with. So we're actively having to go engage those, because there's not as many of those fish in the water, and you've got to make sure you're in the right pond to catch them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, with all of this AI storm that we have been in for the last couple of years, right? And in the last 6 months, the industry have actually heated up more than ever in terms of adopting to AI, and, a lot of platforms or AI tools also mushrooming, more so in the last 3 months than ever. So what is your general take on AI? Where are we heading with all of this? Any particular tools that you're really fond of, using day to day at your agency? So just wanted to understand your thought process on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to answer the tools. So ChatGTP, Gemini, any of the above are really, really, really useful in your just day to day, to whether it's check an email or give you some ideas for stuff or help formulate a bit of a structure to something. But it's quite dull just using for me, because I just spend so much time on calls, but a system that records the conversations and then can summarize it and give you the actions, just in terms of a time saving and making sure nothing gets lost. But also rolling that out to our team to make sure that they're using it, because I might not be in a meeting, or then having essentially the complete transcript of what went on is incredibly powerful. So I'm afraid it's probably quite a boring answer. Our team are doing some really clever things. So one of our guys he's using a local LLM to teach them about all his clients. So when he's a performance specialist. So when he's going to make a change, he runs that change by the LLM based on what it knows on that particular client. And then he can basically have a back and forth with it and understand whether he's going to make a good or bad decision by making those changes. My flip on that to him was, well, you've actually just created an onboarding tool. So if we onboarded a colleague for him, he's not going to have to necessarily now sit and get the new colleague up to speed. We can sit him in front of the LML and say, right, tell me all about client X, tell me all about client Y. So it's interesting how you might have one user case for a system here, but if you think about it, there's some other potential applications for that. In terms of kind of what we're seeing, well, my view on it's a really powerful tool. And I think unless you are actively engaging with it and adapting it, you are going to get left behind. The analogy I keep using is that it's like the jet age. It's like we're going from Spitfires and propeller aeroplanes that are really fast and great, but you get a jet engine, this is next level. And if you don't migrate to that, you're not going to be able to compete. You're going to be behind the curve. We're actively engaging with all our clients. I mean, we have been talking about this for the last 18 months. So for instance, when within the last 4 months, it was announced that Instagram and social media platforms, brand ones, are going to be pulled into Google searches. People were really surprised by this. We were a bit like, well, why? We've kind of known this been coming down the road for a long time. We've been helping our clients adjust and restructure for that. So we've not seen any massive drop-offs with any of our clients, thankfully, because the work we've been doing is paying off. But we have observed some clients who've actually some brands that we just follow have really struggled in the space because they've not adapted. We as a business are investing a lot of time in our own geo surfacing to make sure that when people are using platforms like Perplexity or Claude or ChatGPT, we're surfacing. We actually won a piece of business through it that came through ChatGPT the other week. Yeah. They were searching for an automotive performance specialist, and lo and behold, we came up. So it shows the work we're doing is important. So yeah, we are spending a lot of time on it. We have an internal working team that they meet every couple of weeks, and they have projects and they've got stuff to deliver. We're trying to understand at the moment how we can create almost not a platform, but actual user cases for some of our automotive clients that we can say, look, we've created this. It'll be really useful for you in this scenario. Things like that are all very much in prototype stage, but we are just trying to explore and be as dynamic and reactive as possible, because what was happening 6 months ago compared to what will be happening in a further 6 months, it'll be worlds apart.
Perfect. Now we are ending 2025. We're already in November. What is your take on 2026 as, one of the emerging metric you believe will define performance success the next year that most marketers are not tracking yet?
Yeah, because we're all used to people tracking impressions and CPAs, but I think the big thing is brand visibility. And there's a variety of methods and indicators you can use to track it. But I think back to my point about the whole AI thing, we're getting now into the world of zero click. People aren't clicking through on search results because they're getting their answer on Google. Back to my point earlier about the whole being visible on the whole on the whole funnel, right from that initial just being visible to awareness, right down to intent being there. And I think we should be putting a much bigger emphasis on how the brand is surfacing. So you are successful, I think, now if people are beginning to see your brand when they start thinking or searching around. They might not click, they might not come through, but if your brand name, your content is there, back to the conversation we had prior to the podcast here, that if people are just finding you, seeing your message, that's where I would start saying we're delivering success. So thinking on the full funnel and how the brand is being monitored and performing will be probably the critical metric, I think, into 2026. Because who knows what Google's going to roll out next? Yeah, we've heard of betas in paid ads on Google Ads in the US and a very small number of cases. What does that actually look like in practice? We're not sure. So there's a lot to uncover. And as I said, I think things will be different in a further 6 months. I've never known it change like this.
Yeah. Any favorite client story, James, in your journey so far at Black Lab?
Yeah. We probably the one I like to talk. I've got two actually, and both are automotive. One of them is super simple, and it comes back to a theme of one of our events, which was making simple changes for big wins. It was a big when I say supermarket, I mean car supermarket, and they had about 6 sites across the UK at the time. They were spending a huge quantity on the performance ads, and these were really early days with them, and we were just looking for how we could make some big performance changes without actually having to have tons and tons of data in front of us. And what we realized, we overlaid their sales data with where the geolocation of where their ads were showing. And they're a northern-based business, and we realised that they were advertising in places like Leeds, Manchester, York, Sheffield, Hull, essentially what we call in the UK the M62 corridor. And Manchester's on the west side of that, and they were spending loads of money over in Manchester. But when we cross-referenced the sales data, they weren't selling anything. They were never selling a car to anyone over to Manchester. So people weren't coming over the motorway and buying cars, but people were in all the other cities I referenced. So really simply, we pulled all the budget out of Manchester and put it in those pockets where it was selling, that they were actually converting to end customers. But obviously, the car buying process isn't like buying a pair of trainers. It's a much more long-winded process where somebody clicks, they make an inquiry, they then go into the store, they speak to someone, they may go away for a day or two, they come back, and then they do a deal. So it's quite tricky to attribute sales. That was a real big saver for them, saved a lot of money, and the efficiency of the ads campaign went up. More recently, again, another automotive client, but a finance client we've worked very closely with them to properly set up HubSpot tracking, so doing end-to-end tracking. So from that click right through that customer life cycle to them being approved for car finance. From that point, we're able to take the data about those individual customers. It's anonymized, so we don't know who they are as individuals, but we know like the types of, obviously their interests, what finance category they're in, feed that back into our ads campaign so that we're then able to target those as sort of essentially lookalike individuals and try to go to market to find more of those people, which when in that particular example, we are looking for a very small number of fish in a big pond because it's a prestige finance brand, so they deal with people wanting to borrow a lot of money rather than everyday vehicles. It's quite hard to find those people. But for them, we've taken the efficiency of the applications up from something like 37% to 68%, so a huge jump. And it's all really been driven by the whole end-to-end tracking we've worked with them to actually deploy. So we can follow them all the way through. So we say they're like the pinnacle of our clients in terms of the ability to follow the customer through and then be able to feed that data back in essentially a big loop. And that's where we've made the most difference, I think, for a couple of our clients that comes to mind.
Lovely. Great, James. This has been a super conversation. A quick rapid fire before we let you go.
Sure, fire away.
All right. Your last Google search.
My last Google search was for where we're going tonight. We're hosting an automotive dinner in Leeds, and I needed to check the address of the venue to share with somebody.
All right. Where do we find you on Friday evenings after office or after work?
You will find me early Friday evenings between 5 or 6. My little 5-year-old boy is playing football, so I go and watch him play. And then I love cooking, so I'll probably, when I get home, be either reheating something I'd made earlier. I had slow cooked something, or getting some steak or something on the barbecue.
All right. Your next vacation plan?
My next vacation plan, I just booked to go to Greece in May, just the other
nice.
day. Yeah, I've got a
Very
holiday booked. Quite a long way away. I can't think I've got anything before then. Hopefully I will, though, because that's quite a long way away.
All right. One thing that you would want to change at Black Lab, if anything at all?
A good question. We've this is an easy thing to change. Not have as many biscuits.
Is that a
in the
long
office.
list?
No, not at all. No, there isn't much. We're very much in growth stage, so we're working, as I say, with a non-exec director. So we're really just honing down and refining the business. Even though we're a small team, we're trying to be really good at what we do and really focused. So no, I think we're doing lots of really good things. But the one thing at the moment is we've got too many biscuits in the office, so we need to get rid of those because they're not good for my waistline.
Perfect, James. Yeah, I've been a sport. Thank you so much for taking out time to do this with us. Really appreciate it, man. Cheers.
No, great, and have a good rest of your day, Ranmay.
You too.